I'm not being combative. I'm just saying
No, you're right.
I only hear it one way,
Hmm.
when in reality, growing up in the barrios all my life, man, I've heard so much judgment on white people, rich people. It's just like you need to feel a certain way. Hey, you know what? They look at you like this. They think of you like this. They,
Hmm.
all this kind of bad judgment. And it's like, look, maybe some do, maybe some don't. I'm not saying anybody does or anybody doesn't. I'm just simply saying there is a lot of, judgment passed, where it's just like, oh, well, because they have money, I guess it's okay to judge them in
Yeah.
a bad way. And it's like, no, it says not to judge by appearance.
Yeah.
That's also good appearance.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody looks like they have it all together and they're articulate and they're in a suit and tie and they roll up in a nice car and they have it all together. I Look, I've been around people, and by the way, I was like this too for once upon a time in my life, where it's just like,
Hmm.
man, look at this fool thinks he's all good, man. He doesn't know it. There's all this bad
Yeah.
judgment on this person now,
Yeah.
and I don't even know this person.
I early on in my rap career,
Mhm.
um, I was very racist toward white people growing
Yeah,
up because of
yeah.
just in the town that I grew up in, there was hardly any blacks, there was no Asians, there was no Middle Eastern people. It was you were white or you were Latino, and that's it.
Mhm.
And we were the minority. But I remember in my music career, the I ended up getting a post office box for my record company at that time, and I would get a lot of mail, and I would have to do a lot of copies and this and that. So I spent a lot of time there, and this older white man owned it. And over time, it was weird how he single-handedly destroyed the stereotypes I had of white people. He
Mhm.
was the most kindest man. I mean, wholeheartedly kind, and I sometimes I felt like he didn't. I would be like, "Do you realize I'm Chicano?" Like, you know what I mean? Like he would talk to
Right.
me, and he really dismantled that. And then um, I learned to engineer in a recording studio at a university because they would rent out the studio time, and there was a white man. He was blind, and he taught me how to mix and engineer. That's how I ended up engineering the whole label of Darkroom Studios because he taught me, and he was a white man and the kindest man.
Mhm.
So that got dismantled pretty early on. In probably my early 20s of that, and then even further when I did get incarcerated, I've met police officers, correctional officers that wholeheartedly were good people. They
Mhm.
were just this was their job. This was their job. You know what I mean? And just it's weird how the longer I've lived, the more that stereotypes get broken down. In the way I see people. I'm gonna give you another example.
Uh-huh.
Is I grew up to hate anybody from Southern California. you know and I've heard of your videos. You felt the same toward people up here. But in when I went to Terminal Island, and it was probably about 200 Southsiders there.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying everybody. I mean, I'm sure there was some jerks in there,
Mhm.
but I met a lot of humble people, man. That great conversations, and I'm just like, wow. Again, walls being broken down.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing that to some of my closest people to my heart right now were ex-outsiders that
Mhm.
are serving God. You know what I mean? Um, and it's just crazy what the Lord does, and it gives me a different mind, and just maturing and just getting older, and I think it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful. Now, that's not to say that there's bad people, but I mean, there's bad people in everything. There's bad officers. There's bad pastors. there's
Absolutely.
there's bad everything, man. And to say this whole group of people is bad. I mean, no,
Mhm.
that's a very lazy way of looking at life.
Right. Yeah, I agree, Pastor. I just kinda go with just, individual now.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I was saying, like, like, it was okay to judge certain people, but it's not okay to judge, every time you hear judgments like, oh, judging the poor, or judging,
Yeah.
minority, or judging anything like that. When I was a kid, and there was a lot of judgment, man, towards,
Yeah.
white people, or,
Hmm.
if you want to call rich people, whatever, but there was a
Yeah.
lot of it, like, all over the place. You
Well,
would
growing
judge
up,
them.
right? You thought just because they were white, they were rich. That's how I grew up,
Yeah, yeah, and there was a lot of
and that's
bad
not true.
language. There was a lot of bad language being thrown around with it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? And you were taught to, you know, have some sort of hatred towards them,
Yeah.
because you were taught that, hey, they think of you like this. They think of, and
Hmm.
like I said, maybe some do, maybe some don't. I don't know, but I'm just saying, as a kid,
Yeah.
it was kept on being bashed into my head, like, they think of you like this, they think of you lower, they think of you da 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 da,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, judgment was all over the place. So you know what, Pastor? There's a another verse here that
Hmm.
I want to get to, and that's Zechariah 8:16.
Zechariah 8:16.
8:16. Yes, sir. Just let me know when you're there.
You can go ahead and read it.
Okay, and it says this, Zechariah
I got it.
chapter 8, verse 16 says, These are things, I'm sorry, these are the things you shall do. Speak each man the truth to his neighbor. Give judgment in your gates for truth, justice, and peace.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
you judge in your gates,
Yeah.
but you judge for truth, justice, and peace. Going back to pretty much the word righteous, and how a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot of people, I would just say this: whenever anybody thinks of judging, they think of anger. They think of, oh, that means they're bad, or that means they're mad, or something like that. Or whenever they did something wrong, they themselves did something wrong, and it's like, hey, man, who are you to judge me? You're nobody to judge me. Where it's like, well,
Yeah.
you know what? Listen, they themselves to judge whether they want you around or not.
Yeah.
That is on them. To condemn you is another thing, right? There's only one that can do that.
Yeah.
But to say, "Hey, listen," um, I used to attend a certain church, right? And I remember the pastor there said, "Ooh, making a lot of noise behind you, pastor."
Oh, sorry. Whoa, that's weird how that goes makes the volume go up loud.
Yeah, I could hear everybody behind you.
Yeah, somebody was knocking for candy, and
But
Sharon's giving them these little Christian books.
yeah. So okay, so I remember I used to attend a certain church, right?
Yeah.
And that pastor pretty much said what you had said earlier, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I guess there were a couple of people, kids, youngsters, right?
Yeah.
And the pastor was talking to the parents, right, at in the main sanctuary, saying like, "Listen, get control of your teenagers, okay? Everybody is welcome here.
Hmm.
The doors are always open, all right? But we're not gonna allow um, teenagers, bringing in certain things, trying to sell, or coming and trying to hook up, anything like that. We're a place of God, and
Yeah.
we're here for them, definitely. But you need to do this at home as well." So, and basically, he went on and on about that, and he said, "Listen, if this continues, okay, just complete utter disrespect
Yeah.
and not caring, the doors are always open when you want to be serious, but you will be asked to leave. You will be asked to leave And I remember some people were like, "Oh, how can you tell people to leave from church?" And at that time, I don't know, I didn't really put much thought into it,
Yeah.
but I was like, "Oh, okay, what have you." But now that I think about it, I'm like, hmm, okay. So somebody is coming into church and purposefully, being disruptful and doing, some things that would go against what we are about here at church.
Yeah.
And if it continues, if you cannot, be that person, or if you need some help, for extra help from the church for your kids, it's here. But if you're not taking that extra help and you're not taking those extra steps, and they're just, bringing certain substance to make some fatty on the side or something like that, trying to be corruptive, you
Yeah.
will be asked to leave. You know, what do you think about that, Pastor? Because I remember, and this is years ago, I remember people were seeing
Yeah.
that as being judgmental.
No, it goes exactly with this verse that you're sharing. It was let's see, what verse is it? 16.
That was verse 16. Yes.
Yeah, these are the things that you shall do: speak the truth to one another, tender in your gate, judgment that are true, and make for peace. So here's some context: is back then, cities had to have a wall around them, or else bandits would come in and they could literally massacre all the men, all the women, all the children, all the elderly.
Mhm.
So every city had a gate that would stay open during the day, and at night they would shut the gate. And there was people standing at the gate that had to judge and make sure the people that were coming in weren't going to bring harm, because your family lived in there.
Mhm.
If somebody came riddled in disease, you're not going to let them in, because a pandemic was going to kill and wipe out the whole village. If a rapist or whatever it was. So that's what it was interesting about this. It says, render in your gates judgments that are true and make for peace. So you had to be careful. The so all the city officials, all the security was at the gate, because they had to be really careful of who they let in.
Mhm.
Now I love the way you're basically talking about church, because in a sense those are our gates. That's the gate, because who are we going to let in? And I don't know how many times me and Sharon have had to talk to people and say, listen, this just because this is a church don't mean it's public domain,
Mhm.
because we have children in here. We have, we have women in here. We have people that we have to take care of. There's families in here.
Mhm.
The other day, I still want to talk to some of the brothers, because somebody that is he basically walked. I think he's homeless. I don't know, but
Mhm.
he walked in, and you've been to the church. Remember that wing where all the classrooms are at?
Yes. Yes.
He made a beeline all the way down there
Mhm.
without nobody stopping him. It had to take one of the women teachers to say, "What are you doing here?"
Mhm.
And I'm still upset about that. I got to sit with some of the men and be like, "What is this?" You
Right.
know, there's no business for a there's no business for anybody, especially a man without a child, then we don't know you, to make a beeline straight down that. Maybe he was lost, maybe he wasn't, but nevertheless, that shouldn't have happened, because we have to be at the gate,
Mhm.
you know. Um,
Yeah,
but at
like
the
I
same
said
time,
right there, and we don't know you. You gotta ask, "Hey, where you from, homie?" You know?
but
But,
again, we gotta be, I gotta make a judgment call
and
as a
and just
pastor.
and just to simplify it, it can be your home. It's like, "You know what? I don't want that person at my house."
Exactly.
For whatever reason, I don't want that person at my house. Now, somebody can leave your house
Yeah.
that you told that to and say like, that he's judgmental, man.
Yeah.
He thinks, his stuff don't stink or whatever, but it's like, this is my house,
Yeah.
my
One time,
domain.
one time back in the day, man, before I went to prison, before I was a Christian,
Mhm,
I had a barbecue at my house, and all my homeboys were over. And
mm,
my primo came over, and he was getting a little drunk, and he was drinking. Next thing you know, I'm in the house. I ran into maybe whatever, for whatever reason. All of a sudden, when my homeboys comes in, he goes, "Hey, hey, your cousin's about to stab so and so."
mm,
You know, and here's the thing that my cousin knows: you're not. Nobody's going to be in my house unless you're in my inner circle.
mm,
Nobody. No,
mm,
I was not going to let people into my house back then. You weren't even going to know where I lived. You weren't going to get into my front door because my kids are there. So if somebody's at my house, it's because they're very close to me. My
mm,
cousin knew that, but he was drinking and he got stupid, you know. So all of a sudden, some guy comes. He goes, "Hey man, your primo's about to stab somebody back there." And I was so angry. I went back there, and nobody wanted to get close to my cousin. He had a knife in his hand, and I walked up straight to him. I said, "What are you doing?"
mhm,
I said, "You know this is my house, right?" "Yeah." "And you're gonna stab somebody in my house? Do you not realize that if somebody is in my backyard, it's because I love them?" And
mm,
it was like,
mm.
so
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just he started apologizing. I and I made him apologize to my friend. You know?
yeah. Just a quick story. My brother, um, my brother was he was a mean alcoholic. Back in the day, a
Yeah,
few years back, he was a mean alcoholic, right? And I would have, and not to say that I was all holy and everything, because
yeah,
I wasn't, right? But the thing about him is that he would get drunk and he'd want to start fights with,
yeah,
some friends, some homeboys that I would invite and everything for kids' birthdays, some of my kids'
yeah,
birthdays and everything, right? And he would wanna start fights. He would start poking and jabbing, hoping that one of them gets disrespected and then says, "Hey, what's up?" or whatever.
yeah,
And I I had to make the judgment call and say, like, "You know what? I no longer invite my own brother."
yeah,
I that's it. I cut him off because I'm like, "You know what? I cannot have any get-togethers. Nobody's gonna
mhm,
wanna come anymore because he's gonna
yeah,
be here wanting to start pleito after he has a couple of pops."
yeah,
So I made that judgment where it's like, "Look, love you, carnal, but I can't have you come over for any barbecue, any birthday party, or anything like
yeah,
that." Now, fast forward to today, happily to say that my brother is about 5 years sober and he's serving the
good.
Lord. So,
Amen.
God bless him.
Yeah.
I love you, carnal. And you
But
know
what?
what? Just to continue, that was verse 16. I mean, if you want,
Yeah.
we could continue on verse 17 where it says, "Let none of you think evil in your heart against your neighbor, and do
Mm,
not love a false oath. For all these things,
yeah.
that I hate," says the Lord. But Pastor, there's one more verse I want to go to, because we've been talking about it, but I don't think we've actually shared a verse, and that is James, in the book of James.
Yeah.
Let me get there. You're probably a lot
No.
better at it than I am.
What verse is it?
James.
James.
Let me see. We're looking at, yeah, James chapter 1, verse 19.
Okay.
And this is where it's like, okay, people that judge um when they're upset, or they mean you harm, they mean you bad. They're looking to make fun of you. They're looking to, bring you down for whatever reason. Either way, their
Hmm.
judgment is not righteous because it's not out of love. It's not to uplift you. It's
Yeah.
mainly to bring you down, whether it's out of anger, whether they just want to make fun of you, they're hating on you, whatever it may be. But I want to go ahead and read chapter 1, verse 19 and 20.
James
So,
1, 19 and 20.
yeah, so it says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. I
Yeah.
heard you say this in I heard you
Devotional.
say that in one of your Bible talks, Pastor, but
Yeah.
the slow to speak, swift to hear, slow to speak,
Yeah.
slow to wrath, and then what it talks about wrath on verse 20, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of
Yeah.
God. So, Pastor, what I see when I read the Bible,
Hmm.
when it comes to judging, it's not that you are not to judge, but it is that you are to remove the log from your own eye
Yeah.
and judge righteously. But again, it's judge righteously. It's not what you think is righteous, it's what the Bible says is righteous. And I'll go ahead and I'll be honest. There's times that yeah, I still do catch myself judging in an unrighteous manner, and then I'm like, you know what?
I think we all do.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? God bless that person. You know,
Yeah.
um, maybe I still have a certain feeling in my heart or something, but you know what? Uh, God bless that person. Hopefully, they can, turn it
Yeah.
around one day. But
Yeah.
Pastor, what's your thoughts on either that verse or just all of this altogether?
Well, I wanted to throw a verse out there.
Yes, sir.
It's First Peter 4:17.
Okay.
First Peter 4:17. Want me to read it? Or you want me to wait for you?
No, go for it. I'll
It
get there.
says, "For it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God. And if it begins with us, what would the outcome for those who do not obey the gospel of God?"
Hmm.
Why do I say that? Is because the Bible, Jesus says, he goes, "I didn't come to judge the world; I came to save it."
Right.
Jesus talks about it's the blind leading the blind. When Jesus was crucified, he says, "Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing." So I have a personal pet peeve when Christians try to judge the world according to Christian beliefs. Because how can that be if they are blind? They don't know. We're not called to judge people as far as, like what I'm saying is trying to make people live out of Christian principles when they're lost. But it says judgment begins in the house of God. Why do I say that? Is because in the house of God, now that you have given your life to the Lord, I need to judge righteously. In other words, if somebody is committing adultery in the church and I call him on it, he can't say, "Oh, you can't judge me." No, matter of fact, I can, because it says here the judgment begins in the house of God.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so this is key and this is important because we are. Do you know why? Like when police do get arrested for something,
Hmm.
they should be dealt with harshly and harder than an average person because they held a badge.
Hmm.
They're held to a higher standard. Same thing like when doctors do things or whatever, they do things that it's horrible because they're held to a higher standard. So in the same way, that's why it says here that judgment begins in the house of God. In the 12 years I've pastored, there's been a few people that I have had to expel them out of the church. um Now if somebody is keeps committing the same sin, hey man, that's on you. But if
Hmm.
your sin causes a cancer in the church and starts to affect everybody else, that's a problem. If you're a single guy and you're constantly trying and sometimes successfully sleeping with the women in the church and you're causing divorces to happen, you know what I mean? And you're the common denominator of it, because it takes two people, right? But
Right.
when you're this person's constantly the common denominator in issues, You got to go. Do I want you to go to hell? No, but go find some other church. You're not going to do that here because
Mhm.
judgment begins in the house of God. You know, and I think we should. I think that that's why, as a pastor, I can say I should be able to say, "Hey, follow me as I follow Christ." You
Mhm.
know, don't look at me. You're looking at Christ, but at the same time, I'm not going to let that let you bypass me. It's like my walk better be right because you're following my walk as I walk after Christ. And if not, then judge righteously.
Mhm.
You know, and so I like that verse there because judgment does begin in the house of God. We're called to reach the lost. They are lost. They are in sin. They are depraved of God. They are living in a demonic realm, and demons are blinding them. You know, so I'm called to set them free. But judgment begins in the house of God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it says. I just really wanted to talk about this, Pastor,
Yeah,
because I continually over and over and over hear people say, um, I don't judge anybody, which is not true. That is not true. Everybody judges. Everybody
yeah,
has formed of opinion of somebody, either what either they're doing. And by the way, even by their look,
yeah,
in all honesty, even by their looks. Okay.
yeah,
So there's this whole thing of like, oh man, I'm nobody to judge. I don't judge anybody. You know what? We all judge. We all have opinions of people, of what they say, what they do. There, whoever's watching, you're judging this video right now and what we're saying. So, I mean,
yeah.
that's really what it is. So,
But isn't
um,
judgment part of survival?
I would say it is, but
Yeah,
what it just kind of everybody, por favor, read the Bible on your own. Um, Take time to read the Bible on your own. It's great to go to church. It's great to find a good church and, for them to preach the Bible to you and all this good stuff. But find time out of your day, even if it's one chapter, which
yeah,
that's what I was doing. That's all I was doing. I was just doing one chapter, and have a little notebook next to you. Have a little notebook next to you, and when something just, captures your eye or whatever, just jot down that verse or a highlighter
mm,
and just highlight it. But it's very important, in my opinion, Pastor, to read the Bible on your own as well as go to church. Absolutely. But
yeah,
to read the Bible on your own because they don't preach the Bible verse by verse and just all the way through when you capture the story that way. And um every time I heard about judging, it's you're not to
yeah,
judge. It's in the Bible. Don't judge. That's not what I saw. That's not what
yeah,
I read. That's not what I see in the Bible. It doesn't it from what
yeah.
I saw, it doesn't
No,
say
yeah, I hear you.
do not judge. So,
Yeah. Oh man,
but
there goes that mic again. You know what it is? Is I think because Sharon's talking to somebody and the mic thinks it has to pick up her voice, so the mic automatically goes louder, and I don't know how to control that.
oh, okay.
I think
Well,
that's what's
Pastor,
happening.
we've reached the end of it anyway, Pastor. Any
Yeah.
last thoughts you want to throw out there?
Well, wait. I don't think Sharon realizes how loud it's getting. Hold on, bro.
Yeah, yeah. No, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just
So
bloviate a
I
little
did
bit
want to say
more.
something though at the end.
Mm,
Oh, she's closing it.
okay. Well, I'll just
She,
bloviate just a little bit more
yeah,
on the reading the Bible on your own. Um, it doesn't mean that pastors or churches that you go to are doing a wrong or bad job.
yeah,
Um, but when they get their sermon ready, they're putting out there what they were given by God. So when you read it yourself, um, I just felt more intimate getting it that way, and then going
yeah,
back and then rereading it, right? Without
yeah,
without being at church and saying, okay, now turn to this verse. And it's like, wait, I'm still trying to capture this one a little bit. But
So
go on, Pastor.
this is what I wanted to say is like I wanted to piggyback off you telling people to read the Bible.
Hmm.
Um, you can't go to church and expect the pastor to spiritually feed you. Nobody in their right mind would eat food on Sunday morning and that's it for the rest of the week. Um, Church is meant to be a place of fellowship, a place to get together of like-minded people that love the Lord. But you should have a personal relationship with Jesus. And part of that is reading the Bible and letting it build you up and all that. And so this is my piggyback suggestion is get a pen or get colored pencils and mark that Bible up, make it yours. And I don't know how you feel about that,
Hmm.
but mark it up, put notes, underline stuff, highlight stuff, and you make it yours. And kind of like in that movie, Full Metal Jacket, when they
Hmm.
get their rifle,
Hmm.
this rifle's mine, and that
Right,
whole little
right.
saying they do.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Bible, make it your Bible, make it yours, mark it up, write in it. That is not a sin to do that. It's
Mhm.
not sacrilegious. It's actually it's going to help you grow. It's going to help you come back. It's going to help you over the years look and be like, man, look at that. Look at this stood out to me. That stood out to me. And it just becomes yours, and I would suggest that for people that as they read the Bible to do whatever they need to do to make it theirs.
All right. Good work, Pastor. You guys can find Pastor David Rocha on House of Rest Church on YouTube, also on David Rocha on YouTube. I will go ahead and leave the links so you guys can go ahead and check him out. Pastor, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for having this conversation here with me. I think we cleared it up pretty good.
Yeah,
I
yeah, no, it
enjoyed
was a
it.
good conversation. I like this. I'll be honest with you. I like all the videos we've done before,
Mhm.
but a lot of times there's a lot of different questions all over the place, and I feel hurried to kind of give snippets of what I think. This is more relaxed. It's one subject, and it's more concentrated. I think it's more productive.
And there'll be many more to come. That's for sure.
Yeah,
As always, familia, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of surroundings and always keep a safe distance. Blood makes you live, but loyalty makes you family. Till next time, this is Ed the Thecholotrucker for my good friend, Mr. Pastor David Rocha. Over and out.